The marble steps are black mirrors reflecting lightning. Rain falls so hard it sounds like static, like the world is breaking apart in bursts of white noise. 11:47 at night. August humidity wraps around the Philadelphia mansion like a wet fist, air so thick it coats the lungs, and somewhere beneath the thunder rolling through the streets, there is only silence and the sound of breathing that belongs to someone in absolute shock. Rowan Chen stands in the center of those marble steps. 26 years old. 5'2". Small-framed, almost childlike in stature, wearing a white nanny uniform soaked completely through and clinging to her body like a second skin. Her hands are covered in blood. Not hers. The blood streams down her wrists, mixing with rainwater, dripping onto white marble that looks black in the storm. Her eyes are unfocused. Her mouth is open but no sound comes out. 15 feet away, Nico Calabrese sees her for the first time, and something in his chest splits open like a blade through stone. He is 34 years old, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a torn black suit that cost more than Rowan's annual salary. His own blood stains the white shirt exposed at his collar, a gash running from his temple to his cheekbone, a scar that will join the others carved into his face by a lifetime of violence. His dark eyes are sharp, always moving, always calculating. But in this moment, they stop. They lock on her small frame. They watch the blood drip from her fingertips onto the marble like she is the only thing in the entire world that matters. Behind Nico, two men in black suits stand frozen. Marco and Enzo. No. Rocco and Theo. His lieutenants. The men who have spent 15 years watching him walk through fire without flinching. They stand with their weapons still drawn, rain streaming down their faces, and they are watching their boss move toward the small woman on the steps in a way that feels impossible. In a way that breaks every rule they have ever understood about who Nico Calabrese is. He takes 2 steps forward. Then his knees hit the wet marble with a sound like a gunshot. Rocco's breath catches. Theo's jaw goes tight. In 15 years, they have never seen him kneel. Nico reaches toward her with both hands, and his hands are shaking. Rain plasters his black hair to his skull. His voice, when it comes out, sounds like someone learning how to speak for the first time. Shattered. Raw. Who did this to you? It is not a question. Rowan blinks. Her eyes focus on him slowly, like she is swimming up through water, like she is waking from a nightmare she cannot escape. Her voice comes out barely a whisper, trembling like a candle in the wind. He said I owed him. He said tonight was collection night. Behind her, the mansion door stands open. Inside, lying on the black and white checkered floor of the Harrington foyer, Preston Mercer's body is motionless. His face is turned sideways, frozen in shocked rage. The fireplace poker lies 3 feet from his outstretched hand, the iron curved like a question mark. Blood pools beneath his head and spreads across the checkered floor like spilled ink. Nico's eyes move from Rowan's blood-covered hands to her face to the body behind her. He does not move. He does not speak. He just watches her for 3 seconds that feel like years. You saved me tonight, he says. His voice is different now. Deeper. Like someone recognizing a truth that cannot be unsaid. Those men were here for me. The ones outside the gates. You stepped between me and bullets. You didn't know who I was, and you stepped between violence and a stranger. Rowan shakes her head. Rain and tears mix on her face. Her entire body trembles. I didn't know. I just saw them. I just saw someone hurting someone, and I couldn't. She stops. She cannot finish the sentence. I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand why you're on your knees. But what she does not know is burning inside Nico Calabrese's chest like a brand. What she does not know is that he arrived at the Harrington mansion tonight running from his own brother's betrayal. That his entire organization is collapsing around him. That he was sold to enemies by blood, by family, by the one person in the world he trusted with his life. That when Rocco and Theo pulled him back from the ambush, he thought this was how it would end. Violence in the rain. Another night of running. Another night of wondering if the next bullet would find its mark. But she saved him. This small woman in a soaked white uniform, covered in someone else's blood, with eyes that have seen too much suffering to believe in anything good. She saved him without knowing his name. Nico's hands drop to his sides. He stays on his knees in the rain. "What is your name?" he asks. "Rowan. Rowan Chen. I am going to tell you something, Rowan Chen, and I need you to listen to me carefully. The man inside this door, the one who hurt you, he is never going to hurt you again. You understand me? Not in this life. Not in the next. He is going to become a ghost. A story people tell and then forget. But you," he pauses. Something moves across his face, something dangerous and absolute. "You are going to become someone I remember." Rocco and Theo exchange a look that neither has seen in 15 years. In Nico's eyes, there is something that was not there before. Something that looks almost like mercy. Almost like love. The rain intensifies. Lightning splits the sky open. Rowan Chen does not know that her life has just changed forever. She does not know that the man kneeling before her in the rain is Nico Calabrese, one of the most powerful people in Philadelphia. That he answers betrayal with absolute finality. That he never, ever forgets a debt. That the people who hurt what belongs to him disappear into a network so deep and so absolute that even God cannot find them. She does not know that Margaret Harrington, the woman who employed her for 8 years, who watched her sleep in a converted closet, who made her work double shifts for barely enough money to feed herself, who invited Preston Mercer into the service entrance tonight knowing exactly what would happen, she does not know that Margaret Harrington is about to lose everything. All Rowan knows is that someone is looking at her like she matters. Like she is not invisible. Like her survival means something to someone with power. She reaches out, trembling, and touches his face where the blood runs from his temple. Her small hand is gentle. Her eyes fill with tears that are not for herself, but for a stranger who kneeled in the rain for her. The thunder rolls away. The lightning fades. But the rain keeps falling. Now let us go back. 8 years before this night. To the moment when Rowan Chen first walked through the front gates of the Harrington mansion, carrying everything she owned in a single paper suitcase, with $200 in her pocket and absolutely no idea what being invisible meant. $200. That was the exact amount she had when she arrived. $200 that had to last until her first paycheck arrived in 14 days. $200 meant $14 a day for food, for transit, for every necessity except the roof over her head. The room they gave her was not a room. It was a converted closet on the 3rd floor of the mansion, barely large enough for a twin bed and a plastic storage bin. Margaret Harrington showed her the space on her first day without apology. Without explanation. "This is where you sleep," Margaret said. She was 58 years old, with blonde hair that cost $300 a month to maintain, wearing a cream-colored dress that had been tailored in New York. "You are here 6 days a week. Sundays off. Your day begins at 6 in the morning and ends when the children are in bed. That means 7 at night, or 8 if they are restless. Emma is 6. Lucas is 9. They are very high-need children. You will be responsible for their breakfast, their lunch, their snacks, their homework supervision, and their bedtime routine. You will not discipline them. You will only report to me if they misbehave. You will not eat in the dining room. You will take your meals in the kitchen. You will use the back stairs. You will not use the front entrance. You will not go into my office, the master bedroom, or the library. You understand?" Rowan nodded. She did not speak. Speaking felt dangerous somehow, like opening her mouth too wide would swallow her whole. "Your salary is $800 a month, paid on the 15th. No benefits. No days off except Sundays. If you are sick, you will call and I will find someone to replace you, and you will not be paid. Do you have any questions?" Rowan shook her head. "Good. You start tomorrow at 6. I expect the children bathed, fed, and ready for school by 7:30. Emma eats only organic fruit. Lucas will eat anything but refuses vegetables. Both of them have allergies that you need to be careful with. Emma is allergic to nuts. Lucas is allergic to shellfish. If they eat these things, they could die. Do not kill my children. Do not kill my children. That was the instruction Rowan Chen carried into her new life. The converted closet had a window that overlooked the mansion's back garden. The first morning, Rowan woke at 4:30 and lay in the dark, listening to the sounds of the house waking up around her. She could hear Margaret moving in her room 2 floors down. She could hear the distant sound of a shower running. She could hear silence pressing against the walls like something alive. She had $17 left in her pocket. The first week, she learned to stretch $14 across 7 days by eating the leftover food from the children's plates. Margaret would leave half-finished meals in the kitchen after dinner, meat and vegetables and bread crusts, and Rowan would wait until Margaret went upstairs before she scraped it into a container she kept under her bed. By the 7th day, her stomach hurt and her hands were shaking, but she had managed to save enough of her initial $200 to pay for a bus pass. By the end of month 1, she had saved exactly $342. She lived on less. She learned to do it. She learned that hunger becomes normal after a while. She learned that the human body can run on almost nothing if the mind understands the necessity. But more than that, she learned that Emma and Lucas needed her in a way that made everything else irrelevant. Emma was 6 years old. She had blonde hair in ringlets and green eyes and a laugh that sounded like bells. She was afraid of the dark. She had nightmares about things she would not articulate to her mother, but she would tell Rowan everything, sitting in the dark of the converted closet, her small body pressed against Rowan's side. "There are monsters under my bed," Emma would whisper. "There are no monsters," Rowan would say. "There is nothing under your bed except wooden dust and safety." "How do you know?" "Because I checked. 3 times. Every single monster left the house when I arrived. They are all afraid of me." Emma would giggle, that bell sound laugh, and her fear would dissolve. Lucas was 9 and angry in the way children become angry when they sense that their parents are fighting without words. He would refuse to do his homework. He would hide in corners of the mansion where Margaret could not find him. But he would always let Rowan find him. He would always take her hand. "Why do you care if I do homework?" he asked once, sitting in the library that Rowan was not supposed to enter, hidden behind a shelf of leather-bound books. "Because you matter," she said. "Your future matters. Your life matters." "Does it?" he said. "Mom says I'm difficult. Dad says I'm not trying hard enough. Why do you care?" Rowan sat down beside him. She pulled him against her side. She said, very quietly, "Because I see you. I see that you are trying. I see that you are brave. And I know that one day, you will understand that all of this, all of the anger, all of the feeling lost, it will make you strong in ways that other people will never understand." He buried his face in her shoulder and did not speak for a long time. This was her life for 8 years. The converted closet. The back stairs. The meals eaten after everyone else finished. The salary that barely covered the cost of staying alive. 8 years of being invisible inside a mansion where she was present every single day. But somewhere in those 8 years, in the quiet moments with Emma reading picture books, in the late nights helping Lucas with math, in the small acts of care that no one paid her to give, Rowan Chen became the one person in that mansion who mattered to the children. And Margaret Harrington saw it. She saw how Emma reached for Rowan's hand instead of hers. She saw how Lucas would not do homework for her, but would do it immediately for Rowan without a single complaint. She saw the children loving someone who was not their mother, and something in her twisted. That is what brought Preston Mercer to the back door on an August night, humid and thick and full of the smell of approaching rain. That is what made Margaret Harrington decide that Rowan Chen needed to be reminded of her place. That invisibility had a price, and that price was about to be collected. The marble foyer swallowed sound. Rowan Chen stood in the center of it, 17 years old, mouth open, staring upward at a chandelier that hung like a frozen waterfall of crystal. The light caught in 1,000 points and scattered across her face. She had never seen anything so expensive. She had never seen anything so fragile. Margaret Harrington descended the staircase, one hand trailing along the mahogany banister. She was 45, blonde hair pulled so tight it seemed to stretch her face toward something distant and disapproving. A designer pantsuit in slate gray, heels that clicked against the marble like a clock counting down. She looked at Rowan the way someone might look at a stain on a white wall. The previous nanny lasted 6 months, Margaret said. Her voice was smooth, calibrated, the kind of voice that had learned to deliver cruelty without raising its pitch. Let's see if you can manage better. You'll care for Emma. She's 2. Your room is through the kitchen. Dinner is at 6. We do not allow socializing with the children outside of work hours. Do you understand? Rowan's throat felt like a closed fist. She nodded. Yes, I understand. Good. Unpack quickly. Emma will be home from preschool in an hour. The room was not a room. It was a converted storage closet, 6 feet by 8 feet, with a cot that sagged in the middle and a plastic dresser that held the smell of industrial cleaner. No window. No ventilation except for a narrow gap at the bottom of the door. Rowan set her duffel bag on the cot and opened it with hands that shook. Everything she owned fit in this space. Everything she was fit in this space. In the side pocket, wrapped in tissue paper thin as prayer, were a pair of yellow baby shoes. Size 2. They had been given to her at the shelter when she was 3 years old, abandoned at a bus station with nothing but a name pinned to her jacket and these shoes on her feet. She touched them once, feeling the soft leather worn smooth by an infant's invisible steps. Then she closed the bag and did not touch them again for hours. This was August. The beginning. 8 years later, the marble foyer was just another room where Rowan did not belong. She had stopped looking up at the chandelier sometime in year 3. By year 2, Emma was 4 years old and crying because Margaret had missed her preschool graduation. Rowan found her in the mansion's library, a child collapsed against the burgundy carpet, shoulders heaving with the kind of sobs that seemed to come from somewhere below breath. Mama said work was more important, Emma cried into Rowan's shirt, leaving wet patches that would dry into salt stains. She said she had meetings. Rowan sat down on the floor and pulled Emma into her lap. The library stretched around them in every direction, floor-to-ceiling books, leather bindings, the smell of old paper and furniture polish. Books neither of them were allowed to touch, because the children's fingerprints would smudge the spines. Rowan rocked Emma back and forth, the way she had learned to rock, and whispered into the child's hair. You are the most important thing in the world. Do you hear me? You are. But what she did not know was that Margaret Harrington stood in the doorway, watching. Jaw tight. Eyes tracking the way Emma clung to Rowan instead of reaching for the phone to call her mother. Eyes tracking the way Rowan's hand moved across Emma's hair with a tenderness that Margaret herself could not manufacture. Something twisted in Margaret's chest, and it looked like hatred. By year 5, Rowan was 23 years old and working 14-hour days. 6 in the morning until 8 at night, 7 days a week. Margaret paid her $400 weekly, but held $200 for room and board, which meant Rowan's actual take-home was $200. That was how the math worked. That was how it had always worked. Rowan's hands had become a map of labor. The skin was chapped red, split at the knuckles, the fingernails bitten short where the cuticles bled. She had developed a habit of rubbing her palms together when she was nervous, and they burned. Everything about her was burning. Emma, now 7, asked her one afternoon while Rowan braided her hair for school. Why don't you have your own house? Rowan worked the braid gently, section over section, fingers moving through muscle memory. Because I love being here with you, she said. The lie tasted like copper. By year 8, the present day, 1 week before the rain, Rowan tucked Emma into bed in a room that looked like a princess castle. The walls were painted lavender. There was a canopy bed with silk curtains. Photographs of Emma covered the dresser, Emma at the beach, Emma on horseback, Emma at a party where every child had been given a gift bag that probably cost more than Rowan earned in a month. Emma was 9 now, old enough to understand that some things were not fair, old enough to feel the unfairness in her chest and not know what to do with it. "You're more like my real mom than she is," Emma whispered into the dark. Rowan's heart broke and soared simultaneously. She kissed Emma's forehead and did not speak, because if she spoke, she would cry, and the crying might break something in her that could not be repaired. After Emma fell asleep, Rowan returned to her closet room. She changed into sleep clothes, a t-shirt with a hole in the collar, underwear that was thin from washing. She looked in the cracked mirror that hung above the plastic dresser. The scars covered her back like a map of hell. Some were thin white lines, faded now to nearly nothing. Others were raised welts, thick and permanent, the color of old bruises. A constellation of pain, a map of the years before the Harringtons, before Emma, before she had learned that invisibility had both a price and a cost. She had never told anyone about them. 2 days before the rain, at 9 in the evening, Rowan stepped through the mansion service door to throw out trash. The dumpsters were set back from the main building, hidden behind a low stone wall. The smell of rotting food and spoiled milk hung in the humid air. August was suffocating. Even the darkness felt heavy. Preston Mercer was waiting. He was 52 years old, thick-bodied, the kind of man who had turned to muscle and fat in equal measure. He wore a shirt with the top 3 buttons undone, revealing a chest covered in dark hair and a gold chain that caught the last light. His breath, when he moved toward her, smelled like whiskey and cigarettes. "You're 3 months behind, Chen. That's $2,400. Rowan's stomach dropped into her shoes. "I paid last month. I have the receipt. I can show you the receipt." "Lost it." "Happens all the time." His hand landed on her shoulder, heavy as a stone. "But I'm reasonable. We can work something out." His finger slid down her arm. The touch made her skin crawl like something alive and poisonous was moving across it. Rowan jerked backward, her shoulder burning where his hand had been. "I'll get you the money," she said. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. 5 days. "I promise. I can get." She stopped. The words had already escaped, and there was no catching them. Preston's eyes lit up like a predator recognizing the scent of blood. 200,000? That's a lot of money for a nanny to have access to. Margaret got a safe? Jewelry? Something valuable in that fancy mansion. His smile made her skin crawl in a new way, a way that felt like drowning on land. 5 days, Chen. Or I start making calls. Immigration status. Theft from the Harringtons. I know people at the police department. Know what they're interested in. He stepped toward her. She stepped back, hitting the stone wall with her spine. 5 days, he repeated. Rowan ran. She pushed past him, past the dumpsters, through the service door that she slammed and locked behind her. Her breath came in sharp gasps. Her hands shook as she climbed the back stairs to the closet room. She counted the money in her wallet with methodical precision. $200. That was all she had left in the world. 40 days of groceries. 2 months of the apartment rent she kept but never slept in, an address that was not servant quarters, a legal fiction that proved she existed somewhere. She pulled out the yellow baby shoes from her duffel bag. They were so small. They felt weightless in her hands. She sat on the cot and held them against her chest until her breathing slowed, until the shaking stopped, until she remembered how to exist in a body that felt like it belonged to someone else. The shoes smelled like the past. They smelled like a person she had been, a child with nothing, carried in someone's arms to a shelter where a woman with kind eyes had placed these on her feet. She had kept them all these years like a prayer, like a proof that she had once mattered to someone. 5 days. $2,400. A safe that did not belong to her, in a house where she was not permitted to touch the books. The humidity pressed against the small room like a living thing. Outside, the sky was darkening, bruising purple and gray. The smell of approaching rain hung in the air, thick and electric. Preston Mercer had been watching her for months. He had seen her leave the mansion on Thursdays, carrying a small bag, heading to the apartment building where he owned 3 units. He had seen her counting change at the corner store. He had seen her and decided that a woman like her owed a man like him something, and that 5 days was long enough to wait for payment. What neither of them knew was that on the other side of the city, a Mafia boss was running for his life. His brother, trusted since childhood, had made a deal with the Colombians. Nico Calabrese's empire was collapsing from within, and in 5 days, in the rain, his world would pass directly by this mansion where Rowan stood, trembling, holding yellow baby shoes and counting hours. The thunder started quietly, a sound like furniture being moved in a distant room. Then louder. Then the rain began. The rain hammered against the kitchen window like fists demanding entry, and Rowan Chen's hands would not stop shaking. Water dripped from her hair, mixing with blood on the marble counter, Preston Mercer's blood, not hers, though she could not quite believe the distinction mattered anymore. The fireplace poker lay on the floor where she dropped it, still wet, still accusatory. Her breath came in short gasps that felt like drowning while standing upright. Nico Calabrese sat across from her at the granite island, 6 foot 2 inches of controlled stillness in a blood-stained shirt that had cost more money than Rowan had earned in 3 months. Dark hair plastered to his temple where the bullet had grazed him, a scar running from eye to cheekbone like a map of violence she was only beginning to understand. His eyes were storm grey, and they watched her with the intensity of a man who had just discovered something precious in the wreckage of his world. "Your hands," he said quietly, his voice deep and solid like an oath. "Let me see them." Rowan pulled back instinctively. "I don't need." "You're in shock." "Shock makes people refuse help." "I'm not asking." He stood, moved to the cabinet above the sink with the certainty of a man accustomed to being obeyed, found the first aid kit, and returned. His movements were deliberate, each one controlled, nothing wasted. He took her left hand gently, examined the cut where the poker's handle had bitten into her palm, and began cleaning it with antiseptic that stung like betrayal. Rocco appeared in the doorway, shoulders filling the frame. 45 years old, built like a brick structure with eyes that had seen things that would break ordinary people. Behind him, Theo, younger, mid-30s, with the restless energy of someone trained for violence but denied its outlet. Both men froze when they saw Nico kneeling in front of the nanny, working on her hands like she was made of porcelain instead of survival. In 15 years, Theo whispered to Rocco, so quietly he thought no one would hear, "I have never seen him like this." Never. Rocco said nothing, but his jaw tightened. He'd been with Nico since the beginning, since before the Empire, since the days when Nico was just a kid from South Philly with nothing but rage and a code. He had never seen gentleness in those hands. Only precision. Only power. The clock on the wall ticked past 4 in the morning. Outside, the rain continued its assault, and somewhere in the mansion's upper floors, Margaret Harrington was making phone calls that would reshape the coming hours into something neither Rowan nor Nico could anticipate. Nico wrapped gauze around Rowan's palm with the same care he'd use on a newborn. "Tell me about Preston Mercer." Rowan's throat tightened. "He owns the apartment building on 8th Street. Where I rent a room I barely use. He's been collecting late fees." The words felt inadequate, like describing a hurricane as wind. "I owed him $2,400. He came to the mansion tonight because he knew I wouldn't have it. Margaret, Mrs. Harrington, she told him that's where I'd be." Something changed in Nico's face. The storm-grey eyes went flat, dangerous, the eyes of a man processing a betrayal within a betrayal. "Margaret told him." "She did. I heard her on the phone with him last week. She said, she'll be vulnerable on Thursday. The staff is off. Take what you're owed." Rowan's voice broke. "I didn't understand then. I thought she meant the money. I didn't think she meant she couldn't finish." Nico's hand was still on hers. "You didn't know what she was inviting him to do." "No. You've been here 8 years. 8 years of 14-hour days. Sleeping in a closet. Margaret taking money that didn't legally belong to her, and Preston taking money that didn't exist, and no one asking if you needed help. He said it like a judge pronouncing sentence on the world. What changed tonight? Rowan looked up. You. A man I didn't know, running from people who wanted to kill him, and instead of saving myself, I just stood there. Between you and the guns. She shook her head slowly. I have never done that before. I have spent my entire life being small, being invisible, being the kind of person people don't notice and therefore don't hurt. And tonight I stood between a Mafia boss and his executioners like I had any power to stop them. You did stop them. For exactly 3 seconds, which was enough for Rocco and Theo to get in position, enough for gunfire to erupt, enough for me to escape. Nico finished wrapping her hand and sat back. You didn't stand there because you had power, Rowan. You stood there because you have something more valuable. Mercy. Mercy for a stranger when the world had taught you that strangers are dangerous. Behind them, Rocco shifted his weight. Theo's eyes had gone wet at the edges. This was not the Nico Calabrese they knew, the man who ordered people disappeared, who made decisions about other men's lives with a phone call and a nod. This was someone else. Someone impossible. Where's Emma? Rowan asked suddenly, panic replacing everything else. She was asleep when I need to check on her. Rocco already did. She's fine. Deep sleep. She didn't hear anything. Nico stood. But we need to talk about what comes next, because Margaret Harrington is upstairs making calls that are going to have consequences. As if summoned by the mention of her name, Margaret appeared in the kitchen doorway at 4:37 in the morning. She was fully dressed, hair and makeup perfect, phone in hand like a weapon. The silk robe was gone, replaced by a cream-colored dress that probably cost what Rowan made in 2 months. Margaret's face was constructed into an expression of concern that didn't reach her eyes, which were calculating, planning, already several moves ahead in a game only she understood. Rowan, Margaret said, her voice smooth as oil on water. What has happened in my home? Nico turned. When he did, Margaret took an involuntary step backward, though his expression hadn't changed. Your home has been cleaned of a problem, Mrs. Harrington. A man who was extracting illegal payments from your employee. A man you invited into your home to threaten her. Margaret's hand tightened on the phone. I don't know what she's told you, but Rowan has a history of fabricating stories. She's emotionally unstable. Last week she claimed she didn't have money for. I have records, Nico interrupted, and in those 3 words was the authority of someone accustomed to absolute certainty. 8 years of pay stubs showing $400 weekly minus $200 for room and board. No lease. No legal rental agreement. That's $83,200 stolen, Mrs. Harrington. And then there's the $200,000 you reported missing from your household safe 3 months ago. The insurance claim is still pending. Interesting timing, given that's when Preston Mercer started threatening Rowan, and given that you needed someone to blame for your financial problems. The blood drained from Margaret's face in a visible tide. You have no right to. I have every right. The right that comes from the fact that Rowan is no longer anyone's victim. Not yours. Not Preston's. Not anyone's. Nico's voice was quiet, which made it more dangerous. You're going to withdraw your claim on her missing money. You're going to provide her with a letter of excellent reference. And you're going to forget she ever existed in this house. And if I don't? Margaret's voice had gone thin, desperate. Then my people will spend the next month examining every financial transaction you've made in the last 10 years. We will find things. We always do. And we will hand them to the IRS with documentation so thorough that audits will destroy what's left of your life. Is that clear? Margaret's phone trembled in her hand. Behind Nico, Rocco and Theo stood like stone walls, immovable, unchangeable, certain. The rain outside intensified, a sound like the world breaking apart. Somewhere upstairs, Emma slept in innocent darkness, unaware that the shape of her future was being decided in this kitchen at 4:43 in the morning. Margaret turned and left without another word. When she was gone, Rowan exhaled as if she'd been holding her breath for 8 years. What happens now? Nico pulled out a chair and sat beside her. Up close, she could see the exhaustion beneath the control, the way his hands still bore traces of blood that wasn't his own. Now we get you out of this house. You pack what you need, clothes, documents, those yellow shoes I saw in your room. You say goodbye to Emma in the morning, if she's awake and Margaret hasn't warned her away from you. Goodbye. The word came out hollow. Not forever. But you can't stay here. Margaret will make your life impossible. She has connections, lawyers, people in the city who owe her favors. She'll try to hurt you to prove to herself that she was right to hurt you. He leaned forward. Unless you want to disappear somewhere, she can never find you. Rowan's hands clenched in her lap, and the gauze wrapped around her palm suddenly felt like a cage. You mean with you? I mean safe. What that looks like is your choice. The clock ticked. Outside, the rain showed no sign of stopping, and the city beyond the mansion walls continued its ordinary, oblivious existence, unaware that in this kitchen, a woman was choosing between the life she'd always known, small, invisible, hurt, and something unknown, dangerous, possibly impossible. The humidity pressed against the windows like a living thing, thick as blood, thick as consequence. I need to think, Rowan said quietly. You have until sunrise, Nico replied. After that, Margaret will see Emma, and everything becomes complicated. He stood, walked to the window, and looked out at the rain. His reflection in the glass was the image of a man balanced on the edge of something that could transform him completely, or destroy him. In his pocket, his phone buzzed 3 times in rapid succession. Rocco and Theo exchanged glances. Messages coming in. The network moving. The machinery of consequence beginning to turn. And 3 blocks away, in an apartment that Preston Mercer would never return to, his older brother Detective James Mercer read the news of his body being found in the Harrington mansion courtyard, and began making his own calculations about who to call and what would cost him his career if he didn't act quickly. The rain continued. The night continued. And everything that came next was already inevitable, already written in blood and circumstance and the mercy of a woman who had learned to save others before she'd learned to save herself. The rain fell on Philadelphia like a curse that could not be erased, and in a penthouse 30 floors above the city, Rowan Chen stood on a balcony with her hands gripping the railing until her knuckles turned white. Below, the street sparkled like scattered diamonds, indifferent to whether she existed or disappeared into the darkness. She could hear Margaret's voice on repeat from the news broadcast, dangerous, violent, criminal. She thought about Emma watching that footage, believing it, remembering her now as a monster instead of the woman who had braided her hair and read her bedtime stories for 8 years. The yellow baby shoes in her pocket were falling apart, soaked through from the rain. She pulled them out, stared at them, the only proof she had ever been someone's child, someone's anything. These shoes had traveled with her through 5 foster homes, 1 homeless shelter, 2 jobs paying less than minimum wage, and 8 years in a converted closet where Margaret Harrington counted every meal. The shoes had survived everything. Maybe they shouldn't have. She thought about how easy it would be to climb over this railing, to let gravity solve everything, to disappear the way she had always been good at disappearing. Her hands loosened their grip. 1 foot lifted slightly. Then a voice cut through the rain like a blade. Don't. Nico Calabri stepped onto the balcony, soaked immediately by the downpour. Water streamed down his tailored charcoal suit, his dark hair plastered to his forehead, his eyes, those storm-grey eyes that had seen violence and loss, fixed entirely on her. Behind him, through the glass doors, Rocco and Theo watched with the frozen expressions of men witnessing something they did not understand. Rowan turned, tears and rain mixing on her face. They've already won. Margaret keeps Emma. Preston's brother will make sure I go to prison. You should cut your losses before this pulls you down with me. You're still not listening, Nico said quietly. I'm not calculating losses and gains. I'm not deciding whether you're worth the risk. He moved closer, the rain falling harder now, the wind picking up, the city disappearing into sheets of grey. I'm telling you that I won't let you disappear. Not tonight. Not ever. Rowan's voice shattered like glass. Why? Why would you do this for me? I'm nobody. I'm a nanny with $200 in her name and nothing else. Nico's hands covered hers on the railing. You're someone who stood between a stranger and bullets. You're someone who survived 8 years of hell and still had mercy left to give. You're someone he stopped, something raw moving across his face. You saved my life. Twice. Let me save you on yours. The phone inside the penthouse buzzed 3 times in rapid succession. Rocco glanced at the screen, then at Nico through the glass. The machinery of consequence was already turning. By 6 o'clock that morning, Detective James Mercer sat in his downtown Philadelphia office, warrant on his desk, coffee cooling in his hand. The precinct was quiet, that dead hour before the day shift arrived. He was about to make the call to the FBI when 12 men in black federal badges walked through the bullpen like ghosts moving between the living. The lead agent dropped a folder on his desk. Photographs. Arrest records. Payment ledgers from offshore accounts. The voice came out measured, professional, devastating. Detective Mercer, you're under arrest for evidence tampering, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, and accepting bribes from organized crime families. Your brother Preston was under investigation for 47 counts of sexual assault, housing discrimination, and extortion. You've been protecting him for 15 years. James lunged to his feet, his chair flying backward. You can't, I'm investigating a murder. A murder that was self-defense, committed by a woman your brother was actively threatening. A woman you were ordered to arrest to cover up his crimes. The agent's voice never changed. You're under arrest. The handcuffs clicked with finality. As they dragged him out through the precinct, past officers who had worked beside him for decades, past the desk where he had sat for 23 years pretending he was a good detective, James Mercer collapsed into sobs. By 8 o'clock, his face was on the news. By 10 o'clock, his arraignment was happening. Federal bail was denied. He was led to holding looking back once, seeing Nico Calabrese watching from the gallery with the expression of a man who had just moved one piece on a chessboard and was waiting to see which pieces would fall next. At the Harrington mansion, Margaret Harrington sat in her library at 7 in the morning, coffee and newspapers spread before her, feeling victorious. The doorbell rang. She opened it to find 12 FBI agents with a warrant and the kind of smile that promised her world was about to collapse. Mrs. Harrington, we have questions regarding insurance fraud and wage theft. The coffee cup fell from her hand and shattered on marble. What followed were not hours but rather a series of devastation stacked upon devastations. Agents searched her office and found the books, the real books showing the $200,000 she had embezzled from her husband's company, the fraudulent insurance claim, the arrangement with Preston Mercer to frighten Rowan into leaving so Margaret could claim she had stolen everything. The evidence was absolute. There was no explanation that worked, no social standing that could save her, no country club connections that mattered when federal agents were reading you your rights in front of your neighbors. Emma watched from the staircase as her mother was handcuffed and led away. The 9-year-old girl, who had been taught to fear and obey and perform, suddenly understood something with a clarity that only children possess. She ran down the stairs and screamed, "Where's Rowan? I want Rowan." Margaret turned, face twisted with rage and desperation. That woman is a criminal. You're the liar. Emma's voice echoed through the marble foyer. You're the one who's mean. Rowan loves me and you don't love anyone. An agent knelt beside the girl, gentle. Is there someone we can call for you? Emma nodded, pulled out a phone number she had memorized, dialed with trembling fingers. Rowan answered on the first ring, and Emma heard the woman she loved weeping with relief to hear her voice. Emma? Baby, are you safe? I'm safe now, Emma whispered. Can you come get me? The next 48 hours moved like a storm, fast, devastating, inevitable. Margaret Harrington's arrest broadcast on every news channel. Her society friends dropped her one by one. The charity boards removed her name. The country club revoked her membership. Her husband filed for divorce by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, demanding full custody of Emma. Margaret's lawyer was arrested for his involvement in the fraud scheme. Everything she had built on cruelty and lies came apart like wet paper. Detective James Mercer faced federal arraignment where prosecutors detailed 15 years of corruption. The charges multiplied: evidence tampering in 73 cases, $400,000 in bribes, protection of his brother's crimes. Bail was denied. He was led away to federal holding, watching the courtroom recede behind him, understanding that his life had ended not in a moment of drama but in a steady accumulation of small cruelties that had finally caught up. Preston Mercer's body, recovered 3 days later by federal agents during a Zanetti crime family raid, became evidence in a RICO case. His 47 victims came forward. His name was destroyed. The man who had bruised Rowan's shoulders and threatened her child would spend eternity known for what he had done, what he had stolen, what he had broken. 6 months later, snow fell on Philadelphia. Rowan and Nico stood outside the federal courthouse as the final appeals were denied. Detective Mercer had 40 years with no parole. Margaret Harrington was in maximum security after attempting to bribe a guard. She was in solitary confinement, where no one could hear her. Rocco handed Nico a file. The information was routine, bureaucratic, absolutely final. Nico looked at Rowan, and something in his expression shifted, not satisfaction, but completion. The scales had been balanced not with blood but with law, with evidence, with the slow machinery of justice grinding forward exactly as it should. "Is it wrong that I don't feel anything?" Rowan asked, watching the snow fall on the city. Nico took her hand. "They tried to destroy you. You survived. They face consequences. That's not revenge, Rowan. That's mercy." "How is that mercy?" "Because I wanted to bury them. Instead, I let them bury themselves." He squeezed her hand. "You made me choose something better than blood. That matters." They walked to the waiting car, the snow falling like redemption, making everything clean. Behind them, the courthouse faded into white silence. Ahead, everything was waiting. 1 year later, and Rowan Chen stands in morning sunlight streaming through windows that belong to her. Real windows. In a real apartment. 2 bedrooms, pale yellow walls she chose herself, furniture that isn't broken or borrowed. She traces her hand along the kitchen counter, still half expecting someone to tell her she doesn't belong here. In the kitchen, Nico Calabrese makes coffee with the same precise care he once used to clean her wounds. His movements are deliberate, each gesture controlled. Black coffee for himself, vanilla cream for her, the small ritual they've built. Rocco and Theo stand in the doorway, arms full of boxes labeled "Emma's room" in childish handwriting. Emma's voice carries from the hallway, bright and certain. "Rowan, can my room be yellow? Like the color of those baby shoes?" Rowan's throat tightens. She touches the shadow box on the shelf where those shoes rest now, preserved and honored instead of hidden away. "Any color you want, sweetheart." Emma appears, 9 years old and radiant with confidence Rowan didn't have until now. The girl wraps her arms around Rowan's waist. "I'm telling Dad we're keeping you forever." The word should terrify her. They don't. Instead, Rowan feels something settle in her chest, like a bone finally healing straight after months of fracture. Nico watches this exchange. In his dark eyes, something shifts, not satisfaction, but recognition. This is what he chose when he knelt in the rain. Not vengeance. This. The financial recovery happened first. Nico's accountants traced every dollar Margaret Harrington stole from Rowan's wages over 8 years. $83,200, recovered with legal precision. Damages added another $44,000. Rowan now has $127,000 in a bank account she checks 3 times a day, still not believing the numbers are real. She keeps $200 in cash in a drawer, unchanged since the night Preston Mercer died. A reminder of where the story began. "I'm enrolling in classes," Rowan told Nico 3 months ago. "Early childhood education. I want to do this officially, not just for Emma." Nico didn't ask why. He already knew. He set up her tuition, opened her books on the penthouse desk, brought her tea at midnight while she studied. Never hovering. Never controlling. Just present. The scars on Rowan's back haven't disappeared. They form a map of survival across her shoulder blades, her ribs, her spine. One night, Nico traced them with fingers that handle guns with the same gentleness. "They're proof I survived," she whispered. "They're proof you're stronger than the hands that made them," he answered. Saturday afternoon. Rowan and Emma baked cookies in the apartment kitchen, flour coating both their hair, laughter louder than seems possible. The kitchen smells like vanilla and butter and something Rowan never had growing up: safety. Emma stirs batter, focused with concentration. "Dad says you and Nico are courting." That's what he called it. He said Nico looks at you like Prince Philip looks at Princess Aurora. Rowan nearly drops the mixing bowl. "Your father said that. He says it means you're the most important thing in the world to him." Emma looks up, chocolate on her nose. "Is that true?" Rowan kneels to her level, honest in the way children deserve. "Nico is someone who saved me when I needed saving. And I saved him. We're helping each other be less broken." "But do you love him?" The question 9-year-olds ask without fear, without calculation. Just simple curiosity about the world. "I think I do," Rowan says. "But love is complicated when you're both still healing." Emma nods with the wisdom of a child who understands more than she should. "My therapist says healing takes time, but you don't have to do it alone." She hugs Rowan fiercely. "I'm glad you're not alone anymore." Evening falls. Rowan sits on the penthouse couch, curled around a textbook, while Nico works at his desk. The comfortable silence between them, this is what she didn't know existed. Two people in the same room, not speaking, completely at peace. Rocco enters without knocking. The privilege of lieutenants. "Boss. Marco's attorney is requesting a meeting. He says your brother wants to make a statement." Nico's expression goes cold. Rowan looks up, sees the tension crystallize in his shoulders. "You don't have to see him," she says. "I know. But I need to hear what he has to say." The federal prison interview room smells like industrial cleaner and despair. Marco Calabrese sits across from his brother, orange jumpsuit hanging on a frame that's lost muscle, lost swagger, lost everything. 20 years for racketeering, conspiracy, attempted murder. The Zanetti deal collapsed when Nico survived. Marco lost the empire he tried to steal. Nico sits with Rowan beside him. She insisted on coming. Marco stares at Rowan like she's a ghost. "This is her? The nanny?" Nico's voice is ice. "This is Rowan. The woman who saved my life while you were trying to end it. You have 5 minutes." Marco's facade cracks like thin ice. "I'm sorry. I know it doesn't matter. I know it doesn't change anything. But I'm sorry. They offered me everything and I was stupid enough to think I could betray you and survive. You couldn't. I know that now. 20 years is a long time to understand what I gave up." Marco looks at his hands like he's never seen them before. "You were right to choose her over me. She stepped in front of bullets for a stranger. I sold out my brother for territory. She's better than I ever was." Nico stands. "Your 5 minutes are up." As they leave, Marco calls out behind them, "Nico. Be happy. One of us should be." Nico doesn't look back. Outside the prison, rain begins to fall. Rowan asks the question gently, "Do you forgive him?" "No. But I don't hate him anymore. He's just someone I used to know who made a choice I'll never understand." Nico takes her hand. "Because I would never betray family. Because of your code." "No. Because you're my family now. You and Emma. Rocco and Theo. The people who choose to stand beside me. That's family. Blood is just biology. Late night. The penthouse balcony where Rowan almost gave up 6 months ago. City lights blur through rain that falls soft and steady. Emma asleep inside, door closed, yellow room glowing faintly. Rowan speaks first, her voice trembling slightly. That night in the rain. When you dropped to your knees. I thought you were shot. I thought you were dying. I was dying. Just not from bullets. Nico takes her hand, palm to palm, skin to skin. My brother's betrayal killed something in me. I was running on pure survival, no future, no hope. Then I saw you, this tiny woman standing between armed men and a stranger, shaking but not backing down, and something came back to life. What? The belief that there are still people worth protecting. Worth trusting. Worth loving. The word hangs between them like a held breath. I love you, Rowan Chen. I love your courage and your mercy and the way you pour everything into people who deserve it. I love that you made me better than I was. Rowan's eyes fill with tears that aren't about pain anymore. I love you too. I love that you made me believe I deserve safety. That you see me as strong instead of broken. That you kneel beside me instead of standing over me. Always, he says, and kisses her. It tastes like rain and coffee and new beginnings. Morning light. Rowan wakes in her own bed, in her own apartment, in her own life. She gets up, walks to the kitchen, finds Nico making breakfast and Emma drawing at the table. The yellow baby shoes sit on a shelf in their shadow box, not hidden, but honored. Emma looks up. Rowan, can we go to the park today? All three of us? Rowan looks at Nico, who nods. All three of us, she agrees. As they prepare to leave, Rowan catches her reflection in the hallway mirror. 6 months ago she was a woman with $200, a closet room, and scars she hid. Now she's a woman with a home, a future, a family she chose and who chose her back. The scars are still there. But so is the strength. 1 year after the rain, Rowan Chen walks through a real school hallway, diploma in hand. Early childhood education degree earned through night classes and determination. Nico stands beside her, Rocco and Theo in the audience, Emma cheering louder than anyone. Rowan's in-home daycare opens 3 months later. The business card reads, Rowan's Place, where every child matters. Nico provided the funds, not charity, but investment in someone he believes in. She donates $50,000 to the shelter that saved her when she was 3 years old, funding a program for aging out foster youth. The plaque reads, in honor of every child who deserves to know they matter. At a jewelry store, Nico shows her a ring. Not yet, they both agree. When they're both fully healed. When the choice to be together is joy, not just survival. Emma, age 10, writes an essay for school titled My Hero. It's about Rowan. She reads it aloud to the class. My hero is someone who saved a stranger in the rain, who survived 8 years of being hurt and still chose kindness, who became my real mom when she didn't have to. She taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who stays. Rowan reads it later and cries. Nico reads it and understands why he fell in love with her. In his office, Rocco brings news. Boss, the Zanetti family is requesting peace talks. Nico, sitting at his desk with a photo of Rowan and Emma on the corner, nods slowly. Tell them I'll consider it. But any deal includes a clause, no one touches my family. Ever. Theo grins. A year ago you would have said no deals, just war. A year ago I was running from my brother's betrayal with nothing left to lose. Now I have everything. He looks at the photo. She saved him. Not just from bullets. From becoming someone who couldn't feel anything but rage. Summer evening, humid like the night everything changed, but transformed now. Rowan, Nico, and Emma stand on the mansion steps where blood once mixed with rain. They're laughing. They're free. Their family. The camera pulls back, showing the mansion, the city, the sky clearing after rain. If this story moved you, drop a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more stories about strength, survival, and the families we choose. Comment below, what would you do if you found someone in the rain? Would you step between them and danger? Your story matters. See you in the next one. After the rain, the sky clears. And sometimes miracles come from the most unexpected places.